Welcome to Cinemonika.
We all know how insanely popular aesthetics are right now. And of course, we know how much these aesthetics look to movies in order to get inspiration from. So I decided to make a video of movie recommendations that fit all of the popular aesthetics right now. Starting with an aesthetic that has made the rounds on Twitter. And it's very popular on TikTok as well and Instagram. And it's the clean girl aesthetic. I have no idea why it's called the clean girl aesthetic. I guess it's because those girls look like they're very clean. I don't know. The clean girl aesthetic is all about minimalism in outfits and makeup and hairstyles. Everything has to be very polished, muted colors, nudes. They usually have a middle part and very sleek hair. The clean girl aesthetic also has a lot to do with the lifestyle. It's all about eating healthy, doing yoga, drinking green juices and iced coffee. It's like a really well put together young adult woman. I got 3 movies that I think fit the clean girl aesthetic. The first one is Columbus. Columbus is a very minimalistic movie. There's no crazy shots, there's no crazy action sequences or anything like that. It's just 2 people, lots of dialogue, a lot of still shots, very carefully crafted, very carefully positioned. The cinematography in this movie just seems picture perfect. So I think this movie fits a lot of the minimalistic vibe of the clean girl aesthetic. Another movie that I think it would be a good fit is Eat, Pray, Love. In this movie, Julia Roberts travels abroad in order to be more in tune with herself, finding herself. She's going through a hard time in her life, so she's trying to figure out what it is that makes her happy. During these travels, she turns to things like food and inner peace in order to find that happiness. And I feel like the clean girl aesthetic has a lot to do with this, feeling good with yourself, with your body. So I think the self-care point of view of this movie would fit with the self-care point of view of the aesthetic. And finally, another movie that I think would fit is The Devil Wears Prada. In this movie, we also see Andy trying to find herself, what it is that she likes. Obviously, she changes a lot in order to fit in her job, but at the end of the day, she realizes what it is that she truly wants, what it is that she cares about. Throughout this journey, though, she learns how to put an outfit together. She learns how to, do her hair and all that stuff in order to fit the beauty standard. I feel like the clean girl aesthetic is all about kind of like blending in, but also looking very modern, very put together and chic in like an effortless way. So I feel like clean girls, that sounds so weird. All right, moving on to the coconut girl aesthetic. Coconut girl aesthetic is basically like a beachy look, specifically if you were like on an island beach. There's a lot of hibiscus flower prints, surf-inspired prints, lots of shorts, and basically you have to look like you're ready to go to the beach. But it's very heavily inspired by the 2000s, so it's a lot of bright colors. Of course, for this aesthetic, we have to mention some 2000s movies that are set on an island or on a beach. The first one being, of course, Aquamarine. Growing up, I loved this movie so much. I really wanted to be friends with Aquamarine. She just seemed like the coolest girl, the coolest mermaid ever, and I really wanted those like talking earrings. There's a lot of beachy fashion, especially the looks that Aquamarine herself wears. I think they are iconic, especially this blue dress. The next movie is Blue Crush. It's set in the 2000s. It's about surfer girls, and of course we can't forget about the romance. I feel like every single like beach vacation or island movie was always about like a summer crush. I feel like this movie fits perfectly with the aesthetic. And finally, a movie that I grew up watching on Disney Channel is a Disney Channel original movie. It's called The Rip Girls and it stars Camila Belle. She's a surfer girl who lost her mom. And this movie, I remember, it was always really, really sad, but at the same time, so exciting. It came out in the year 2000. All right, those were the Coconut Girl aesthetic movies. Moving on to old money aesthetic. Okay, so the old money aesthetic is basically right in the name. It looks like you have money, but not just any money. Money from generations and generations way before you. It looks like you have a trust fund, you went to private school, you went to an Ivy League college, but not in a tacky way, more in like a sophisticated way. I feel like Blair Waldorf or Nate Archibald are great examples of old money looks. The first movie I recommend for old money is The Parent Trap, solely because of 2 characters. Elizabeth, James, and Meredith. Both of them scream old money in different ways. Elizabeth James is the most sophisticated, elegant woman in a movie. She designs wedding dresses. She dresses like Princess Diana. Like, she even has what's it called? Mayordomo? Butler. She even has a butler. Meredith, on the other hand, she's also very sophisticated and elegant. She looks like she only shops at like Chanel. Two very iconic looking women in this movie. The next movie is Rushmore. I feel like this movie fits the old money aesthetic because the main character, he goes to this prestigious academy. He always wears these blazers and ties, and he just looks like one of those kids who has money, who's gonna go to an Ivy League college. It's all about academics. It just has this pretentious feel. The next movie is Spencer. Spencer, as you all probably know, is the movie that Kristen Stewart stars in as Princess Diana. I mean, what screams old money more than the royal family? This movie is full of elegant gowns, pearls, palaces, fancy dinners. Everything is fancy, basically. One of my favorite parts about this movie is actually the costumes. I think they are absolutely beautiful. They scream elegance and, of course, money. All right, moving on to Coastal Grandmother. A coastal grandmother is basically everything that a Nancy Meyers movie is. Someone who lives in a big house, probably close to the beach. She gardens. She wears a lot of white button-downs, sun hats. For Coastal Grandmother, the movies that I chose are, of course, Something's Gotta Give. This is probably the movie where the term was born because there is no more perfect coastal grandmother than Diane Keaton. Everything that she is in this movie is what a coastal grandmother is supposed to be. Diane Keaton is this woman who is divorced. She's staying at her beach house in the Hamptons, but her ex-husband also is with his new girlfriend. There, they kind of rekindled their relationship. It's a movie that lots of divorced moms would enjoy. And speaking of divorced moms, the next movie that I chose for Coastal Grandmother is Under the Tuscan Sun. This movie is about a woman who just got divorced as well. So she takes an impromptu trip to Italy where she ends up buying a villa. She buys a whole villa and stays there living in Italy, living her divorced life. Of course, she's very depressed because divorce is not easy, but you know, she's living in Italy, so she should get over it quick. I feel like this is very aspirational for, again, divorced moms. If I was a divorced mom, I would like to also do that. The next movie is How Stella Got Her Groove Back, and it's about this woman who goes to Jamaica. There she finds a man who turns her world upside down. This movie has everything that a coastal grandmother movie has. Being either heartbroken, divorced, or unlucky in love. Finding a new love in another location, usually like a beach location or a tropical location or just, you know, an ideal paradise. I must admit though, the outfits in this movie are way less grandmothery, but I still think that the overall vibe of the movie is very fitting with what a coastal grandmother movie usually has. All right, moving on to soft boy aesthetic. So, soft boy, what is a soft boy? It's basically a male who is very in touch with his emotions. He is usually very into artistic things such as poetry, music, filmmaking. The fashion sense is more muted, lots of knits and sweatshirts. I would look at someone like Taehyung from BTS as a soft boy. He wears a lot of sweater vests and things like that, and he's into photography and of course music. But the way that he dresses kind of reminds me of this aesthetic. Movies that I recommend for soft boys. The first one is Patterson. Patterson is a movie starring Adam Driver. He is a guy who is definitely a lot more sensitive. He writes a lot of poetry, and this is just the way that he likes to express himself. He's a man of a few words, but not when it comes to poetry. This movie is really good. It's gorgeous. Adam Driver's character is definitely a soft boy. The next movie that I recommend is Come On, Come On. In this movie, Joaquin Phoenix plays a man who is making a documentary, interviewing kids, asking them about the world. While he does this, he has to take care of his young nephew who actually helps him with the documentary. I absolutely love this movie. I think it didn't really get that much recognition, which is a shame. It's just such a feel-good movie. The way that this kid is so interested in, you know, helping his uncle and being part of this documentary, and he seems like he learns so fast, but he's still such a little kid. I had this huge smile on my face when the movie ended. I guess it's a more like an artsy film. I would say it's also in black and white, and and it just seems like a movie that a soft boy would like. The next movie is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is one of my absolute favorite movies from A24. This movie is incredible, and if you still haven't watched it, I really recommend that you do, even if you're not a soft boy. In this movie, we got two friends who are trying to recover this house who used to belong to one of their grandfathers. The movie is very playful, but at the same time very deep because it touches on a lot of, important topics. The way that the movie is shot is absolutely beautiful. I love the cinematography in this movie, the color palette, everything about it. It's such a well-made movie, in my opinion. And I feel like soft boys would appreciate this movie. There you go, soft boys. Moving on to WHIMSI Gothic. Not gonna lie, this isn't really my aesthetic, but kind of liking how it looks. WHIMSI Gothic is basically like a lighter take on a gothic aesthetic. It's more whimsical, like the name says, more playful. It's kind of like a cute creepiness, like Tim Burton movies, witchy vibes, but more of a colorful and fun and lighter feel to it. The first movie I chose for WHIMSI Gothic is, of course, Practical Magic. I feel like this movie is the epitome of WHIMSI Gothic. It's all about witches, it's got all the witchiness, but also with more of a lighter feel. It's not really creepy or dark. It's also just a really fun movie about these sisters who are witches, but they don't really know much about magic. They just try to make do with what they have. Just the aesthetics of this movie, the outfits, everything about it screams WHIMSI Gothic. The next movie that I chose is Howl's Moving Castle, because again, it has that witchcraft element to it. Hal is a wizard. He has a moving castle that is just, a bunch of garbage put together. It's just a big adventure movie that's full of magic and strange creatures and things like that. But of course, since it's a Studio Ghibli movie, it's very fun and whimsical and charming. Hal is a gothic king. And lastly, I couldn't not pick the movie Twitches, which is a classic Disney Channel original movie starring Tia and Tamera Mori. Like the name says, they are twin witches. Twitches. Since this is a Disney Channel movie, of course, is extremely, playful and fun. It's not really creepy at all. It is about witches, but the fun kind of witches. All right, moving on to Coquette. So Coquette aesthetic is basically a woman who's very feminine and dainty. It's all about romanticizing everything and embracing your femininity. Flowy skirts, corsets, pearls, everything that is delicate. The color palette is usually like pale pink, white, beige, pastels. I think it's honestly one of my favorite styles. The movies that I chose for Coquette aesthetic are, first of all, Marie Antoinette from Sofia Coppola. I think this movie definitely embodies that femininity, dainty elegance of the Coquette aesthetic. It has a lot of like white outfits with ruffles and soft pinks and pastels. Specifically, Sofia Coppola's style is very much Coquette, is very feminine. So I think any of her movies would probably fit this aesthetic, which brings me to my next movie, which is The Virgin Suicides. Again, everything about this movie is about girls and femininity and the sisterhood of all of these girls. The art direction of the movie is all about these soft colors and pastels, and the whole aesthetic is very Coquette. I would say it's all about that soft vintage look. The next movie is Valley of the Dolls, and this one perfectly embodies that love for that vintage vibe that the Coquette aesthetic has. Of course, being a movie from 1967, but it's all full of pinks and pastels and the hairstyles, the outfits, the production design, art direction. Okay, moving on to the last aesthetic. Moving on to the last aesthetic, Y2K. Y2K is undoubtedly the most popular aesthetic right now. It's all about these butterfly motifs, butterflies in your hair, butterflies back here, low-rise jeans, huge platform shoes, spiky hair. The first movie that I chose for Y2K is Bring It On. Since it's a cheerleading movie, I feel like it gets kind of forgotten as a Y2K aesthetic movie because they're wearing like their cheer uniforms all the time. But when they're not, the fashion in this movie is like perfectly 2000s. It's also just a great movie. It's so much fun. Honestly, it is iconic, and if you haven't watched it, I really recommend that you do because it's one of those like girly 2000s movies that you just can't help but love. The next Y2K movie that I chose is Cheetah Girls. The Cheetah Girls were my absolute favorite. I learned all of the dances and songs even when I couldn't understand English that well. It's from 2003 and the fashion in this movie is incredible. Of course, it has the Disney touch with a lot of the outfits. The music's great, the dance is great, the fashion's great. The Cheetah Girls were amazing. And the last Y2K movie that I want to recommend is Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. This, again with Cheetah Girls, is another movie that I used to have on DVD that I could not understand because it was in English, but I still watched it and I loved it. Again, it's got music, it's got dancing, but it's got a very dramatic Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay was a 2000s queen, as we all know. In this movie, she portrays this very melodramatic girl who is into theater. She's very into this band, and she just makes it her mission to be as dramatic as possible every single day of her life. Be it with, you know, her interactions with people, but also with her fashion choices. I was always in awe of the fashion in this movie because to me, it was like super creative. I loved her little bottle cap necklace. And I feel like there's a lot to be taken from that movie in terms of fashion inspiration. So I think it's a great 2000s movie. It's also super fun and ridiculous, but you know, we love it. Alright guys, those are all of the aesthetics that I'll be covering in this video. I hope that you enjoyed my little outfit changes and of course the movie recommendations for each aesthetic. Let me know if you have more movies to recommend for whatever aesthetic I talked about in this video. And if you want me to cover more aesthetics in a future video, please leave them down below in the comments. Question for you, what is your favorite aesthetic right now? Like I said before, mine is probably Coquette, but I'm very interested to know yours as well. Alright, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.